Hello, FlossTube. Happy New Year's Eve 2020. It's December 31st. In the morning here, it's a very overcast, kind of hazy morning here in Arizona. But it seemed like a good time to go ahead and get an update out and maybe put through a couple of plans for next year. I should have watched last year's plan video so that we could have all had a good laugh, but we're just going to forge ahead and put 2020 behind us after this year. So things have been kind of interesting around here. Everybody's healthy. We've had a couple of had to have some tests done for my son, who is still going to the office every day, but all negatives. He's failed every one, which we are, applauding him for. So nothing has come of that. The rest of the extended family is all good and fine. We did have a layoff situation for my husband, but that has been resolved. He ended up finding some short-term work that turned into long-term full-time work a couple weeks ago. So we are leaving 2020 in good shape. Hallelujah. So we're starting 2021 in good shape. I wrapped up a couple of projects, did some last-minute work, which I was supposed to have a nice, easy transition to my holidays. That didn't happen. I was scrambling until the last hour, but that's okay. I've been off work for about a week now, a little over a week. I don't even know what day it is. It's Wednesday. Yeah, I've been off work for a week and go back on Monday, just like, normal. And during that time, I've done a lot of stitching, I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of Netflix watching. So we'll talk about that in a bit. So today, I'm probably not going to show you everything I've worked on since my last video, just because I got a little slack in my record keeping, and to be perfectly honest, the bulk of what I've been doing is picking something up and stitching till it's done. So I don't have, I may be missing like 2 pieces other than what I have piled around me here to show you. So we're just going to let that go because you'll see them again later. So the first thing, let's show what I finished in the last few weeks. And it's been a good amount, right? These are really in no particular order because they're just how I stacked them up. All right. So the first thing I did, I think this was October, November, somewhere in that time period. I started Be a Pineapple. I had this great thought of actually stitching it, finishing it for my daughter for Christmas. Well, I got it finished, so here it is. She's a pineapple fiend, so this is perfect. It does come with a couple of smaller pieces, so the drum and the little book here, so I've started those, and we'll work on those eventually, but I finished the big piece, which was fun. All my planning, I didn't figure out where to put stuff. Anyway, all right. So the other thing I did was I participated in the Stitching Book Club Christmas Carol Stitch Along, which was a 3-part Stitch Along in December, and I finished it. So this is the completed piece. Very pretty. It's definitely mine. I've made some intentional and non-intentional changes, which we're not going to really talk about, but I really like it. I've been eyeing the Stitching Book Club sales all year. I was really interested in the Three Musketeers, which is one of my favorite books. And then I really like the Frankenstein design that came out. So I'll be looking at those for next year to see. She's announced the books, so we'll see when they come closer, where we're at and what sounds good. I know the first one is Sense and Sensibility, which we'll see. And when she puts out colors or whatever, I'll look at it. But again, I have full up on the stitch along thing, which we'll talk about later. All right, so the next one, I stitched some Christmas ornaments. When I was going through and organizing my fabric and cataloging fabric, which was, oh my God, an effort, I found some cuts that I had purchased from a needlework shop that were for specific ornaments in the 2002 Christmas ornament issue. So I pulled this issue out of my stash, and I ended up stitching the ornaments because I had the fabric already cut. So the first one I did is from Threads Through Time. It's called Christmas Carnation. It's just 2 colors. I just pulled 2 colors of silk, dinky dye silk, and it stitched up very quickly. That was the first one. And then the second one that I did is from With My Needle, Ellen Chester, and it came upon a midnight clear. This is on a 32 count Lakeside Blue, which is no longer available. And all those letters and those sheep are all over one. So one of these days I'll get into an ornament finishing mode and finish them. I have one more ornament out of here that I have kitted and have the fabric for, but it didn't end up getting started. So it's ready for the next time I want to do an ornament. The other big finish that I had is the With Thy Needle and Thread Quaker, Friends and Family Quaker Mystery. So here it is, all done on 36 count white linen in DMC 814. All fun, done, and completed. The initials are stitching friends of mine, gals that for the most part I've known for the last 20 years since I've been in the online stitching community. So, as well as my mother, who's part of that group, my grandmother, who was a very crafty lady in and of her own right. She was more crochet, quilting, and she taught me quite a bit. And then my dogs, because I needed some single initials, so my dogs are in here. My 5 schnauzers. So yeah, all done. Today, the first part of the 2021 mystery came out, which I will be doing, and I'll show you I have my threads pulled, and I'll show you those here in a little bit. The other big finish, which I just finished a couple of days ago, is Mirabilia Miss Christmas Eve. So that's where she is. I started her on Christmas Eve in 2017, and I finished her on the 28th this year. So here she is, all done, and she is a crusty lady. She has got beads and more beads. She's on a 32 count Tyco linen from Picture This Plus. It's a very pale greenish, almost like a light stucco color. If you're not from the Southwest, you may not know what that is, but I don't know, close to my wall color even, which is a pale green. Anyway, so here she is. She's very beady. Everything is mostly as charted. Again, some unintentional adjustments. Now, she's supposed to have like treasures hanging under her armpits. I didn't think that was necessary, so I didn't put them on. They're huge. But yeah, she's done. She is very, very happy to finish. I'm considering figuring out how to send her to Jill Redsel in Utah for framing. So she's done. All right. And then one more finish from this year's ornament issue is Santa Claus from Autumn Lane. He's from the 2020 issue. He's on Cornflower Blue Jobelin. So there he is in all of his folkloric glory. Now, I also started the Snowman, which was in the ornament preview issue in the summer, the Autumn Lane ornament preview issue. But he seemed to be frog infested, so I have not finished him yet, so he is still away. Erin and Cassandra recently released Mrs. Claus to go with Mr. Claus, so of course I have to stitch her as well. Unfortunately, this was the only piece of cornflower blue Jobelin that I had. So I bought a new piece from Stony Creek, which came amazingly fast. It was like 2 weeks, which I was expecting it to take much longer. And so I ordered a couple of other kind of backup options from 123, and then I also called the Stitcher's Paradise in Vegas and ordered a second backup option. But Stony Creek came through first, which was surprising. It came actually on the same day that my Stitcher's Paradise order came in from Vegas. And it was shipped the day after I called them. So anyway, so I have now plenty of, because they're going to do, Erin and Cassandra have said they're going to do more in this series. So now I have plenty to do them all on the same fabric, which is my idea. I'll also be stitching another set of Mr. and Mrs. Claus for a friend of mine's daughter on one of my backup options. Sorry, my pile is precarious. All right. So those were all the finishes that I had in the last couple months. Pretty good, I have to say. Like I said, I was very much a pick it up and stitch on it until I'm done kind of thing, the ornaments especially. I just got bogged down a little bit with my Autumn Lane snowman, but I'll go back to him. Now that I've stepped away from him, the colors just looked really strange to me. But now I'll go back to him as well as pick up. I'll finish him and do Mrs. Claus as well, and then I need to do Mr. Claus again. I'm hoping to stitch more ornaments throughout this year rather than wait until November to stitch them all. I'm hoping to actually do one or so a month, whether it be from old ornament issues, which I have all of the ornament issues except for the first one. So whether I pull from there or whatever, or break into my Mill Hill stash, because we all know I have a Mill Hill stash. All right. So otherwise, the other actual whip that I've been working on is the Autumn Lane Dark Queen of the Seas Sal. So I started, this is December, which I'm obviously not going to finish before January comes out, but January is allegedly smaller. And you had a lot of decisions to make in December. So here's where we are. Her hair, you can see, is like a purple and navy color on the bottom. And then it lightens up over here it'll go into a purple and blue, and then it'll be blue by the time it gets to the top. I'll put a picture up of what the part looks like. But my hair's going to look a little different. But this is the face that I'm using. I'm using the blue-eyed face. Erin released a second pack with a bunch of different hair color options, and I'm actually using one out of that addendum. I have a couple of things that I want to do. I have a couple of ideas of how I want to personalize it just a little further, but we'll see. I have to get it all stitched first before I can do those things. So. Anyway, so here's the hair. Hair's coming along. Next part will come out tomorrow, which is fine. I'm sure I will be caught up again by the end of January. All right. The other start that I had on Christmas Day has become like an ink circles day. I either stitch on a current ink circles whip or I start a new one. Since I finished Cirque to Cirque earlier this year, I started a new one on Christmas Day this year. So I started Square Dance, which is this one, Square Dance. And I'm using Picture This Plus Haven. And I'm using a silk from, I didn't fold it, sorry. I'm using a silk from Silks For You, which is a beautiful bright blue. And it has been nicknamed in my little stitching group as Epic Blue because it's just an epic blue color. So here it is. And that, or what I'm seeing, is pretty much perfect from a color perspective. So that's the 3 motifs in the lower left corner, all of which I did on Christmas Day. But it's one, here's the blue. Obviously I got a hank, so I have a lot more than this, but this is just what I've taken off and put on my card, my floss card. So beautiful, beautiful blue color. So that'll be my big ink circles. I have another ink circles project, but it's the Mysterious Adventure map. It takes a whole lot more thinking, so. Alright, so that was Christmas Day, which was a very nice Christmas Day around here. We, in fact, our Christmas Day pretty much looked like normal, like any Christmas Day. Kylie, my daughter, Kylie, her husband were here for most of the day, and then Zachary's girlfriend came up for a little bit. Gifts, food, normal Christmas Day, lots of movies, stitching, normal Christmas Day. So, tea, hot tea, well, lukewarm tea right now. All right, so the other another start that I've had, other start that I had is Ann Morrison. This is the 20th anniversary traditional stitches design from Hands Across the Sea sampler. So here she is. I think they still have some available. I'll put a link below. I'm doing it in the 103, so spooled silk, which is all the colors, not a huge number of colors. And this is 45 count jersey cream. 45 count jersey cream. Yes, 45 count jersey cream linen. I just started this yesterday. Miss Christmas Eve took me almost 2 weeks to finish, so with 3 days of that being beading. So some of my other December plans kind of got pushed a little later in the month than I had planned. But anyway, so she started, this is just the outline. This is her width, right? Traditional Stitches, the Stitch Along Facebook group, they've broken down the sampler so that it into 12 parts. And so the December part, because everything started in December, the December part are just these first 2 rows. The diamonds and then the flowers below. So I've got half of the diamonds and the border done. So I'm hoping to actually finish the rest of these first 2 rows, hopefully today. It's 45 count linen, so, and 1 strand of floss. It's not bad. I just use a 28 needle and magnifiers and I'm good. So anyway, so that's Ann Morrison. So this is a December or a 2021 stitch along that should finish in November. The Dark Queen of the Seas should finish in August. It would not surprise me if he does another stitch along, but I'm hoping he'll take at least a month's break. All right, so what else? Okay, so the other thing that's on the current radar is the Linens and Threads stitch along, which starts, the first chart came out today. I have not cut my fabric yet. I'm just going to use the same thing that I used last year, which is a 36 count white linen, and I have plenty. It'll fit on a fat quarter. But I did order some. I am going to go for multicolor, I think, this year. The theme is Talavera, which is a Mexican. Well, he's specifically talking to Spain, so it's a ceramic tile art style from Spain, and it's usually quite colorful. So this is my palette for Talavera. Let's see, there we go. The spool is actually a navy. It looks black on the screen, but it's not black. It's actually navy. Ooh, you can just barely see the navy there. So it's navy. This will be the bulk of the stitching. So today he released the borders of the design, which is great. So now we can see exactly what the layout is, exactly what the borders look like. So all the borders are going to be done in navy, this navy. Now, this is actually the equivalent of almost 7 skeins of DMC single strand. So I could technically do the entire project using this one spool. But, and that's always an option. That may be an option. However, I'm thinking I might pop in some color. Because Talavera is, you can see samples that are monochromatic, so a blue, usually blue and white, or you see bright colors in different color palettes. So this is my color palette. These are all sulky 12 weight petites, which I use 1 strand on 36 count, and it works beautiful. And these are the colors that I pulled. So I might use all these colors. I might use one of these colors. I might do everything in navy. So we'll see how it goes when we start getting the parts. It is definitely a tile. It's like 8 tile squares on the layout, and then some longer border things. I'll put a link. You can see what it looks like. But anyway, so those are my colors that I picked. All right. So let's talk about WhipGo 2020. Here's my completed WhipGo board with the completion of Miss Christmas Eve. Now, the goal for Miss Christmas Eve was just finishing her skirt. Finishing the whole thing was definitely an overachievement. All right, so here's how my board ended up for 2020. Not bad. I did get a bingo. Yay! I didn't actually set any rewards. Just the satisfaction of getting the bingo. That's all I did. So. I don't know. But anyway, so I did that. So I finished 13 of the 24 defined goals, so over half. To be perfectly honest, I would have been shocked. I mean, I would have been happy with like 5 or 6, honestly. Now, of the remaining 10 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 squares. Of the remaining 11 squares and the projects that are in those 11 squares, I actually touched 3 of them. Village of Hawk Run Hollow, I determined is a restart. So that was kind of sort of a goal, right? I achieved a goal. I figured out I need to restart it because I'm doing 1/2 on 36 count, which I don't like coverage. The Russian Nutcracker, I still hate stitching on. I knew that was a long shot, but I have a plan for that. Haunted Laboratory, same thing. I have a plan for that. Sherlock and Watson I didn't get to. Deco Spirits I didn't pick up, but I foresee that coming out as on one of this year's WhipGo cells. Mysterious Adventure, we won't talk about that. And then I did touch Sleepy Hollow, but the goal that I had set was just way too big. So anyway, so I did pretty good for my first 2020, my first WhipGo. All right, so let's talk about this year's WhipGo board. So here's this year. I printed it out this time. See, so here's this year's WhipGo board. Now you'll notice there's not a single project listed on here. Nope. One of the issues that I was having, especially later in the year, is that I picked out these 24 projects, but I am very much a stitch what you want when you want, and the Muse was not having some of those projects. She was just not interested, and if the Muse is not interested, then I'm not stitching. So this year I wanted to think about how I could satisfy the Muse, right, and keep the mojo going and keep the good pace that I've been on, but at the same time make sure that I can participate. And so what I did is I created project independent goals. And you can see, start a new project by a new designer, somebody that's new to me. Lord knows I have plenty of opportunities in my stash. And I've made some notes as to what these might be, but if this is called in, September, it may be something completely that I hadn't even thought of in the last couple weeks. There aren't very many starts on here. There's only a couple of 3. There's a start and finish. So that's would be a small, right? Started project by a new designer, and then I have 2 of those. So I have start and finish here, and then another start and finish. So most of the goals are on here twice. Bring the whip to 75% complete. That's only on here once. That's where Deco Spirits could come in, because 2 of the panels are done and I could finish the 3rd panel. Bring the whip to 50% complete. 10 days on a project with specialty stitches. I got lots of options there. Finish any whip. Doesn't matter when it was started. I've gotten some very specific ones. Finish a pre-220 whip. Again, have lots of options. Finish one that was started last year. Not as many options, but luckily I did start some smaller things. So finish any whip. It's over here, right? Page finish. So for January, I have to page finish. And I'll show you which project I am currently thinking about for that. And then complete 10 days on a project. And this one, I'm going to use right now I'm going to use Fortunate Traveler. My goal for anything that's working on a current whip is to do something that was a whip as of today, essentially. So for my complete 10 days, I'm going to do Fortunate Traveler, Teresa Winsler, and I can put a picture of what it looks like, what it will look like finished, and then what my current progress is, which I've got the entire border complete, so that's good. So I'm just working on the inside now. So I'll put up pictures of those because I didn't pull it out. For page finish, I'm going to use Anniversaries of the Heart, and I want to finish January. Give me 1 second, I'll show you. But anyway, so this is my whip board for 2021, project agnostic, and I'm looking forward to it. Again, I haven't really set any rewards if I get a bingo. You know, it's just the satisfaction of, ooh, I got a bingo. All right, so here's Anniversaries of the Heart, which I started last January because I wrote it down. The chart is essentially 1 page. That's the chart. And here's where we're at so far. So I got some border done. I'm not changing colors at this point. I might do it as I go. This is 40 count Oaken from Picture This Plus. So that's where I'm at. And here's the chart. Here's where I'm going. It's completely doable, right? For the personalization, my grandfather was born in January. My maternal grandfather was born in January. So his birth date and initials will go on here. Interestingly, he was born January. So here's the thing. He celebrated one day for his birthday, January 24th or 25th. I can't remember. Or 25th or 26th. Anyway, in those 3 days. I have it written down. For years, he celebrated one of those days as his birthday. As a kid, right? Came from a very large family. He was the baby. Very large family. His mother died relatively young. After he was married to my grandmother, he had a reason to look at his birth certificate, which not something that you always needed when you were, born in the teens, if you will. No. Yes. 1915. He would have been born in 1915. You didn't always need your birth certificate at that age. So it wasn't until much later in his life that he needed to actually look at his birth certificate. And he looked at his birth certificate, and lo and behold, he'd been celebrating the wrong birthday for years. He was actually born on the other side of midnight, based on his birth certificate, than what his mother had told him when he was growing up. So he always, from that point forward, we celebrated 2 days a month for his birthday. Now I'm only going to put one day on here, but still, it's just one of those fun stories. Okay, dry throat. I'm not used to talking this much. All right. So that's WIPCO 2021, which is the first kind of structured thing I'm doing. The other structured thing I've got going for plans, I'm not doing any challenge groups right now. Like the Magical Stitches and Crystal Academy and all that. I'm just not doing that. WIPCO right now is giving me plenty of structure as far as helping me make progress on certain things. But I did pick up another thing from Julie of Reflections, Framing and Stitching. And she's got a group called 25 by 7. And this is a challenge that she's doing, basically to take a WIP and stitch on it, put in 25 stitches a day. That's it, just 25 stitches every day. And you can see how much progress that you can make with 25 stitches every day. She does have a Facebook group. There will be some other, little challenges and stuff along the way. And, but the goal is to make progress on a WIP every day, even if it only takes 15 minutes. So I'll probably have this sitting at my desk with me. So, I make sure I can take a break during the day, which I'm really bad at doing, or lunchtime or something like that. So the first project that is going to be my 25 stitches a day project is my Russian Nutcracker piece. And here's where he's at. So not too bad, right? He's over half done, I think. And he's got big blocks of color, so it'll be easy to count 25 stitches a day, right? And I'm only doing the front. I'm not doing the back. I might do them again someday on fabric. If I do them on fabric, I'll do the front and the back. But the reason that this has been lagging is because it's on this plastic canvas, and this stuff is a pain in the butt to work on. Because it's hard to hold, and I have to use a tiny needle. I almost have to use a beading needle because the holes are really tiny, and it's still, 2-3 strands of thread, right? So it's not a fun thing to work on, which is why I figure at 25 stitches a day, it might take me all 8 hours of my work day to do it, but I'll get in those 25 stitches every day and make progress, and eventually this will get done. And then I'll slap some felt on the back of it, and we'll be good to go. So anyway, so that's my first 25 by 7 project. I need to take a picture of it and get it posted in the group. All right, so that's the other structured thing that I've got. Now, I do have some other plans. The other thing that I've been working on recently is changing my DMC storage. So previously I had basically a bunch of DMC in 4 different things, right? Because I used the floss tags, right? So the tags, and they're all cut to length, right? So I had a bucket that had all of my floss that had been tagged, organized by number. Well, it was kind of a pain because each ring was, one set of numbers, and so having to dig through and find the right ring if I was looking for something, and then I invariably ended up with 2 or 3 of the same floss because as it's getting pulled out of finished projects and blah, blah, blah. And then I have another bucket that's all the overflow, that's stuff that hasn't gone on floss rings yet. And then I still have my old bobbin set. I still have remnants of my old bobbin set when I bobbined. And then I would also have the random pile of finished projects that I needed to put the floss back away into storage so that I didn't buy new floss when I didn't need it. So I did watch some videos, did some digging, read some Facebook stuff, looked at some Instagram stuff, and I've come up with a way to combine all of that into one centralized storage. Now, I'm not doing the bobbin box with the big box and that holds the entire set. I'm not doing that because I don't bobbin. I am using snack bags, 3x5 cards, and some stackable storage. And if you're interested, I can do a separate video on what that is, because I've got all my carded floss all organized in, and I'm working my way through my backup, my overflow floss right now, and incorporating that. And then the last thing will be to bring in all the bobbins, that's the easy part, because those just drop into the bags, right? So I can do a separate, if you're interested in that, I can do a separate video on that as to how I'm doing it, how I'm tracking it, and how I'm thinking about going forward with it. I will not do it for specialty or over-dyed floss, because in many cases in those instances, I'm looking for specific colors. I either have the name of the color and all my rings are alphabetized, or I'm trying to swap out and I need to be able to see the entire color. And if I have them in the bags in a box, it's going to be far less, it's less easy to see what those colors look like. So that has been a project, and like I said, I made good progress. I won't finish before I go back to work, but it's one of those things that if I'm on a day of training or something where I need to be engaged listening or watching something, but my hands need to be otherwise occupied, I can work on it as part of that and still make progress. All right. I still have some other planned starts that I have ready to go here. The first is I'm going to restart Stroke Midnight by Teresa Wensler. I have the digital chart from Patterns Online. I probably have the chart 3 times, but here's the picture from Patterns Online. I made a colossal mistake in the initial, my whip. I didn't get very far along, so I'm going to restart it. I'm just going to use, this is 30 count white Murano, or 30 count ivory Murano even weave. This is old even weave that is no longer made. And I got a whole lot of floss here. So we're going to restart in the upper left corner. I previously started in the lower right corner. We're going to start in the upper left corner and get a whole new section of the chart that I've never stitched before. So looking forward to that. It has a mix of over 2 and over 1, so it's very important to use, for me at least, it's important to use an even weave. The other chart that I've got here that's kind of whispering at me that says stitch me, and I may have it all kitted and ready to go, is the Cooler Designs Winter Sampler. I love this. I love this so much. So I have it living here in the bag with my Stroke Midnight, and I have pulled out some 32 count ivory Joplin for it, because it needs this kind of ivory color, because that background is not stitched. So it's sitting here in the same Stroke Midnight bag, which is from Diane at It Is Kismet. So it may get started soon. Stroke of Midnight will definitely be started tonight, closer to midnight. So that's my plan. Tomorrow, I will be starting this that's in my bag from a wonderful bag maker that I cannot remember, and so I'll put the name down here. Go look it up in Etsy. And I'm starting Oh Joyous Day, because it's 2021. No other reason. I know a lot of people are talking about starting this chart later in the month. That's not my reason. It's just, it's January 1st. Oh Joyous Day. There's a hashtag. Again, I'll put it here. I have all the called for floss. I have a piece of Lakeside 40 count linen. The color is Swassarfine. This was a special dye that was done for Attic many, many, many years ago. You know, it's amazing when you go through your fabric that you've had and the collection that you built for years, and you find all this stuff that you forgot you had. It's like really special stuff. I have way more Lakeside than I would have thought I had, but here it is. So here's my floss, here's my fabric, and I'm ready to go, and I will start this tomorrow. So, dun, dun, dun. And it's a toile bag, and oh my god, I love a good toile. Can't resist a good twirl. Can't read. Oh, wait a minute. Little Boat 88. Little Boat 88. She always puts a fabric covered button needle miner in. This is from the other bag that I bought from her at the same time. So there's my little 88. So, Little Boat 88. Which you already know because I already put it in the bottom of my... Anyway. Tomorrow start. Alright. So the other thing is, since I've finished the small Mirabilia, that means I can start a new small Mirabilia. Because I've stitched a lot of Mirabilias. There's a lot of Mirabilias over there. So here's the one. This is a So Much to Love bag. Here's what's coming next. And I have it all kitted, ready to go, fabric cut, Royal Games. And I'll be doing it just as it's pictured with the Queen of Hearts and Queen of Spades. I love this. I love this so much. So at some point, this is going to get started. I don't know when. Don't have a plan. But she's weird. She's whispering. Now, look at this. I bought full skeins of DMC for this sucker. I don't know how many years ago. All the beads, right? I've stitched enough Mirabilias. For example, 758, 754. I probably have 3 tags worth of these two in my new consolidated floss storage. So I'll be going through and pulling already tagged floss and swapping out for some of these full skeins. So I own a lot of DMC, but you know you're always missing a color, right? Always missing a color. For the Dark Queen of the Seas, for the version of the hair that I chose, of course I'm missing 2 colors of DMC. So I am taking Zachary to an eye doctor appointment this afternoon, and on the way home, because he broke his glasses, on the way home I'll be making a stop at Hobby Lobby and running in and getting those 2 colors so I can finish her hair. Alright, so those are the plans. Otherwise, just stitch. Like I said, my WIPCO 2021 is probably going to be the big box plan for the month. I did also purchase Jen Lee's new 24-hour cross stitch planner. So, and I'll be working through this. I'm only gonna, rather than this year print the whole thing and bind it, I'm just gonna print a month at a time. I bought some nice paper, and so I'll just print out a month at a time and put it here on my clipboard that stays by my chair. But the WIPCO is going to be the big thing, and I'm going to try to again, to fill anything other than a start square. My goal is to choose a WIP that was in progress prior to today, so that I can make better progress. Now, I had 37 finishes in 2020, which is pretty good. My goal is always the year, right? So next year my goal is 21 finishes. I had 37 finishes last year. Awesome, right? Yeah. Until you look at and realize that only 4 or 5 of those were started prior to 2020. So over 30 of those finishes I started and finished last year, right? That doesn't help me from a WIP count perspective. And I still had other starts that I didn't finish, right? So I failed my goal of having 1 less WIP today than I did on January 1st. I failed. It's been a lot of years since I failed that. Usually I'm only down by 1, but still. So again, 2021, 1 less. My goal is to have 1 less WIP a year from today than I do tomorrow. But it's just a goal, right? Stitching is a hobby. WIPCO will go through the year. I followed it pretty darn good, pretty well. This year I'm also going to try to actually work on the squares and the months that they're called. Or at least identify the WIPs and work on them during that month. And keep up with the stitch-alongs. I am entertaining a couple of other stitch-alongs. The Peppermint Purple Black Work Sal, I'm entertaining that. That's a weekly black work. And it's relatively small commitment for a nice project at the end of the year. We'll see. Quiltify Design is also doing a Verlander stitch-along that's almost a choose-your-own-adventure kind of thing. I'll put a link. You can go look at it. Very tempting. Very, very tempting. Also very huge. 72 motifs. Not sure if I'm ready to jump in on that one. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But it's still tempting me. I'm sure there are many others. There's no Frosted Pumpkins that are of interest to me right now. I'm not going to do the annual one. I'm not going to do Cloud's Factory. I'm not interested. Like I said, I'll look at the stitching book clubs when they come out to see. Usually the size will probably be more of a driver than anything else. And the color palette. Okay, so that's it from a stitching perspective. So the other thing that I've been doing a lot of is reading. A lot of reading. I used to be a constant reader. I would read every day. And then I fell out of that habit a few years ago. And I've consciously tried to get back into the habit, right? I used to read before I went to sleep every night. I got out of that. I got to the point where I was messing on my iPad or on my phone. And it doesn't really, I'm not gaining anything. So I have dropped I'm down to one game on my iPad that I play every day, Solitaire. And I'm reading at night before I go to bed. Now, I may be reading 2 books. I'll read a chapter of one and then a chapter of another because I have a lot of books to read, but I'm reading. And I am listening. I'm listening to audiobooks as well. So since probably September, October timeframe, I've gone through 2, 4, 6, 8. I finished 9 books, and I have 3 currently in progress. So let's talk about that real quick. And I'll put pictures of the covers up here because they're all either on my Kindle or an audiobook. Caught up on Harry Dresden. He had 2 books released this year after 5 years of nothing. Peace Talks and Battleground. I read both of those. If you are a Harry Dresden fan, they are classic Harry Dresden. So the series is now in the 17 books. But it's a great series. So if you are an urban fantasy fan or a James Marsters fan who does the audiobooks and does a very good job with the audiobooks, pick it up. I also read Ready Player 2, which came out in November. Again, I loved Ready Player 1 I graduated high school in 1982, so all of his 80s references I get. And there's more of them in Ready Player 2. The movie was quite good. I did enjoy the movie. It's just different telling with different references. But I really liked... But Ready Player 2 is a sequel to the book, not a sequel to the movie. And if you've seen both, you understand. If you know both, you understand. Ready Player 2. There won't be a third. He did not leave it open for a third. Again, I listened to the audiobook, which is read by Will Wheaton, who does a really good job with these books. It's funny listening to him read his own name in the first book. I'm not sure that I would seek out him as a reader in any other series. I know he reads other authors' books. Not interested. I've met Mr. Wheaton. He does a good job with Ready Player 1 and Ready Player 2. I listened to Kenneth Branagh's version of Death on the Nile. Unfortunately, that movie has been pushed to next year for release, I was really looking forward to it this year. It'll be released in the fall of 2021. So I listened to his audiobook version, and he does a great job. I've listened to a couple versions of Death on the Nile. It's one of my favorite Agatha Christie stories, but he does a good one. And now I've gotten so used to his voice as Poirot. So I think David Suchet does a Death on the Nile too, and it's fun to hear those actors do the voices. I caught up on my J.R. Ward, Black Dagger Brotherhood books. I read did I read it? Did I listen to it? I think I listened to The Jackal, which is a new offshoot Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I think it's the prison colony something. Anyway, The Jackal. If you're a J.R. Ward fan, you'll love it. I also listened to A Warm Heart in Winter, which is the fall novella, which is Blay and Quinn's. A Blay and Quinn story, not their story. They've already had their story, but this is a follow-up for them, Blay and Quinn. Again, if you're a Black Dagger Brotherhood person, you know exactly who I'm talking about. That was quite good. That was classic J.R. Ward. Started a couple of new series. I like series. The Great Library series by Rachel Kane. Rachel Kane has been one of my favorite authors for years. She writes a number of fantasy and urban fantasy series. Unfortunately, she passed away of cancer earlier this year, which was unfortunate. She was getting ready to write another book in my favorite of her series, The Weather Wardens, and had done a Kickstarter a few years ago to get that final book. But through other publishing demands and her illness, she was not able to complete that book before she passed away. But anyway, she has a young adult series called The Great Library. The first book is called Ink and Bone, which I read that. And I'm currently working on Paper and Fire, which is the second book in that series. I'm always rereading past favorites just because either it's been a long time since I've read them, or I read them on my Kindle and I want to listen to the audio version, or it's a big book and I blew through it super fast, so I want to go back and read it a little slower to see what I missed. So I've always got a book or two that I'm in the midst of rereading, and so I have two of those right now. The first is Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I listened to it the first time through. Narrator is okay, not my favorite. So now I'm actually reading it on my Kindle, and it's one of my nighttime chapter reads. And I'm enjoying it much more as I'm reading it, even though I still have some of those voices in my head, but I'm enjoying it more as a reread than I did the first listen through. I did start the second book in the series, Court of Wings and Ruin. I'll put it here. But I didn't get far into it, because again, wanted to smack the protagonist. Yeah, always fun. But I'm hoping that reading it myself, I will get through it a little faster. And part of the reason I wanted to reread that series is because I read the first book in her latest series, the series is called Crescent City. The first book is called House of Earth and Blood. And I really like that, and I read that on my Kindle. I didn't listen to it. But I really enjoyed that. So I'm going back to give Court of Thorns and Roses and the rest of that series another try, because I really liked the Crescent City. And book 2 doesn't come out until next fall. I could have waited. She has a couple of other series that, depending upon once I get through the court series, I may go back and do those as well. The other reread series that I'm doing is the Chronicles of the Chasuli. The first book is called Shape Changers by Jennifer Roberson. I read these series when they first came out, like when I was waiting a year in between each book, right? They're read by Bronson Pinchot on Audible, so I'm listening to these. I usually prefer male narrators on my audiobooks. His voice is obviously different because I've already read the book, so his voices are a little different, but that's okay. It's been years and years and years. So I'm listening to Shape Changers. And then the final thing that I'm listening to, just because this is a gotta listen to, is called Clanlands, and it's Graham McTavish and Sam Heughan from Outlander. If you are an Outlander fan, you will absolutely love this book, and you need to get it on audio. And the reason I say on audio is because it is read by Graham and Sam. So I have the book because you can get a copy from my local bookstore, the Poison Pen, and it's an autographed copy by Diana Gabaldon, who does the foreword, because she's a local Arizona resident. So I have the physical copy of the book, but the audio is just a hoot. Listening to the interaction, and I can't imagine. I don't think that they were in the same room where they were recording it, but still, it sounds like that they're having a conversation, and it's funny. Some of the things that they get into. I'm over halfway through it at this point, and it's super fun. And I don't read nonfiction. And this is about they take a trip through the Highlands of Scotland, doing whiskey tasting, and just, it's funny. It's funny. It's a week of their life in a camper. So if you're an Outlander fan, highly recommend. Graham McTavish, I have had the opportunity to meet through my Comic-Con work, and he is probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's definitely in the top 5 for me as far as just the nicest man ever, and the tallest. So, very nice guy. So yeah, lots of reading, lots of stitching, not very much knitting, a little bit of knitting here and there, but not enough to show. And that's it. So I hope your holidays have been going well, and that you're getting some some rest and relaxation, and recharging and getting ready for a fabulous 2021. I will be putting this up, making some clothes, putting all this stuff away. I'll be back to my Anne Morrison and my Dark Queen of the Sea today, and then tonight I'll be starting Stroke of Midnight, which I'm very excited about, and just enjoying a very quiet couple of days before I go back to work on Monday. So have a wonderful day whenever you watch this. There are lots of people out there to watch now, which is amazing, and I'm so glad you've taken the time to watch me. I know this is a bit longer than usual, but hey, it is what it is. Had lots to share. And we'll see you next time.